Sagittarius, welcome to your reading. Today we're going to talk about an aspect that is going to play out throughout the year of 2021, and it's just getting initiated in February with Saturn and Uranus making their first of the three contacts on 17th of February, which will be felt throughout 2021. They're seeding the start of a process, almost a disruption in our pre-existing life, our pre-existing mindset, so we can move to something more expansive. An old structure of life is being broken up to be free, to be more creative, to do what we truly want to do. There's tremendous tension in this last quarter square, but it will become the source of endless supply of creativity and the spontaneous energy which propels us to what we truly want to do. It is sitting in your house of mind and thought process. It is helping you restructure your skill set and your mind. It is expanding your mind to new opportunities. And at the same time, it might be causing some volatility, if I may say, in your house of day-to-day routines and your work, because it is trying to move you from your pre-existing construct through which you live your life on a day-to-day basis, and it is trying to create something more fundamental, more lucrative, more in line with your ideology moving forward. This year, your ruler Jupiter will be in the house of expression, in your house of connections. This happens once in 12 and a half years, and when Jupiter, your ruler, comes here, our worldview is expanded. How we communicate, how we relate to others goes through an expansive shift. This is normally a period of very steep learning curves on real life skills, on skills that can create commercial value in the world. And you learn from people in your surroundings. You learn through networking. You learn through interacting with people in your immediate surrounding. You learn from formal courses. In some ways, you might realize that in order for you to go where you truly need to go, you need to upskill. You need to go and enroll in a formal course of some sorts. This is a very, very positive cycle. When Jupiter comes in a house of mind, our mind is illuminated. It is expanded. Jupiter, your ruler, just like you, is the whole essence of what's big and positive and expansive about our universe. It's almost like everywhere you look, there are different things you can do. The variety that we are born with, the variety that we are blessed with in our life is what Jupiter tries to show us. It tries to show us that there's more to life than where we have been before. It gets you back in your groove, so as to speak, which might have been difficult in the last couple of years. You get socially active. You take on more leadership role in your immediate surrounding. You attract powerful people when this happens. Our energy becomes infectious of some sort, in a positive fashion, because our power of manifestation through our mind, it completely takes another turn when Jupiter comes here. It's almost like you can create the world that you can think of. And because of that, our thinking needs to get more structured. And that's where Saturn comes into play. Both of these planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are in your house of mind, expression and connections. So that will be the key emphasis of 2021, and that will be the source of your next 20 years of growth as well. Saturn over here is trying to give you the gift of knowledge, the discipline to be a student, the discipline to redefine your thinking in a new direction. Because you might be moving in a different direction in your career. And because of that, some new commercial skills, new communication skills need to be learned. It will provide you a more structured way of learning, of marketing, of commercially selling something. It will give you the mental discipline to pursue specific contracts, specific projects which are commercial in nature. And it will help you acquire some long-term skills which will pay off. At the same time, Saturn is all about boundaries and structure. It will help you restructure your thinking process when it comes to your life. It will help you create apt boundaries in some ways. So the amount we let ourselves get influenced by the events that are happening in the news or the noise of the moment, we are able to create a process to cut a lot of that out. It is the house of writing, of communication, of marketing, of business. It's a busy house. And when Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion, stands here, the communication just expands. The people just talk a lot, or you get a lot of interaction, or you have to travel locally a lot, or you have to communicate a lot, or you're given a lot of projects, or there are a lot of things in directions where we want to go. It can feel like there are just so many ideas, just too many ideas, just too many things to do, too many projects to move to. And it can get a little bit hard to relax mentally when that happens. So in those moments when you feel overwhelmed with too many, because this is the house of mind in which so many planets are sitting this year, go to the opposite side. Go to the opposite side, and the opposite side of third house is ninth house, which is a higher purpose. So if I was in your shoes, I would essentially put like a motto, like a final goal, a higher goal for this year, an objective for this year, a theoretical concept of where you want to get all these fabulous aspects that are happening this year too, all these opportunities that are going to come your way to interact with people, to learn more, this deluge of information and knowledge that's coming your way, these opportunities to travel, to relocate, to interact with people having foreign opinions for you, maybe going for a formal education. Your mind is being expanded, but could you give it a direction at the start of it? And that will be, I think, immensely helpful right at the start of the aspect itself. So right at the onset of this year, which is right about now when the first aspect is happening, you have enormous potential to set up a direction. And whenever you feel overwhelmed in this situation, you go back to that motto, you go back to that goal, you go back to looking at something that is a concept that you're trying to create, the end result, or talk to somebody who's like a mentor. Going to the opposite house is about getting somebody who can give you a 30,000 feet view, or getting that from yourself, or sharing your ideas which you're sort of developing, and so as to speak, in a lab. Show it to somebody who has run it on the ground. Show it to a person who's practically done it and lived through it. Share your mental process with somebody who can help you direct that, if that is something that you need, and you will need that occasionally, because this is the house of mind, and when you have emphasis over there, we can become a mental ponderer, overthinking about things, and sometimes overthinking can unfortunately lead to missing opportunities here. So we have to be on lookout for that. We are also putting to practice what we are learning. We could obsess about a lot of ideas, which can cause mental confusion sometimes. There's enormous potential to write, to publish, to express, but it needs to be focused, else we can lose perspective on what are we trying to do. A formal education can completely shift gears for you right now, and it might even feel essential to some extent, because it takes you to the next step in some ways. Need to get out of the head once in a while, get physical, be out. Travel if you could, or just meet with people who are different from you. Or sometimes, as Sagittarius, you're a teacher. This is the opposite house is you. So pretend that you are teaching somebody what you want yourself to learn. So literally think of a situation in a way on how you would advise somebody else if they were in that situation. And you're going to get your answer. If ever you feel confused, if ever you feel scattered, because this is the house where we are exploring, this is a cadence house, we are expanding. When that happens, we open multiple directions. And in those multiple directions, we can get a little bit lost in some ways. Your ruler of second house is right now in the third house. So there are a lot of ideas to make money, to create assets, a lot of choices possibly of going in the direction when it comes to the skill set, which will yield, long-term money, long-term assets in some way. And sometimes we can, when these aspects are sitting in our house of mind, we can get a little bit confused or lost in our mind instead of implementing them. So the opposite house can help us. But this is wonderful opportunity for networker, for somebody to find a network on an internet or become a media figure or find a platform, commute, reconnect with people, reading all sort of books and knowledgeable things that help you get in the groove of the new technology and the new the new era of Aquarius that is upon us essentially. So you could really harness the potential of your mind here. And we can also learn very effectively when Saturn is here, it's almost restructuring our mind. So over the course of this year, we learn to manage our self-talk, the thoughts that go around in our mind, because you're restructuring your mind. Your moods, positive emotional health, negative talk to go away, all those things happen when we are restructuring our mind. And there'll be an authority in your voice. This is the house of communication. We will learn to speak in a very, very different fashion than before to make what we are doing much more lucrative. It doesn't mean that there was anything wrong before. This is the house where value is added to us further. So if you had a skill set before, you learn how to market it much better. If you had a network before, you learn how to connect with them in a way where you can derive value from those relationships. And we learn after a long time of having hard aspects, we learn to see the bright side of things again, which is very much you, which is rediscovering your own mind before a lot of harsh aspects happened over the course of last year. You would find that belief is coming back in life in some ways. There's a lot of potential to grow in the world. When this aspect happens, we feel that there's no end to where we could go. And there's energy, there's initiative because your ruler is in positive aspect with you. You could really become the leader of your domain over here. And our immediate environment, our social position, starts in some ways positively affecting us. We move either to a new environment that is more conducive to us, or we ourselves learn how to deal with our immediate environment in a much better fashion to derive more value out of it. This is also the house of contracts. So when we have Saturn and Jupiter here, we get options on contracts, commercial contracts. And these are normally long-term and lucrative in nature. They could be very, very powerful for you and life-changing in some ways. We tend to attract people who are like you, powerful, influential. And in some ways, we love that company. We love that feeling of being in the know, in the crowd in some ways. We awaken to opportunities in our immediate environment and we learn to take advantage of the information that is available from other people to us. You will communicate with people in your community for opportunities of growth to open up. There'll be a need to gather information to continue to grow. It's a very good time to consider taking a class of some sorts. You'll explore, search, connect. This is light. This is social interaction. This is curious. This is alert. This is adapting to your new environment in some ways. New neighbors, new relatives, having siblings, friends, co-workers around you, and playing a role in your life in some ways. But at the same time, learning to have the right boundaries because you might need a lot of space when that starts happening as your immediate environment expands. You might need time to think. You might need time to have your own long-term thought process or ideology or focus or a long time goal in mind when a lot of these things are happening. So, as I said, go to the other side. Go to the top of the mountain when it gets too crowded, sort of to speak. So, you have some time for you to think about you, or go to that one person, that one father figure, that mentor, or a person who's very experienced in the market who can help you direct all this energy. You are a brilliant thinker. Your ideology is normally ahead of time. You're an unconventional thinker. You can get some sudden insights, downloads, and knowledge while you're interacting with people. This brilliant thinking, intellectual thinking, these flashes of insights that you get, they can be put to some very productive work during this time. You could take up a subject that you have seen before or you have dealt with before, and you can get some very different intellectual comprehension out of the same subject. There was a program you did earlier, and you or there was a skill set that you had before, and right now if you're watching this in February, though this video is very much valid for the whole of 2021, you just had a Mercury retrograde in this house. So it's possible that some old ideas, some old people you used to work with, some old communication that was pending, or some even insight from the past might have come as you rethink, reconnect, or even redo some things of the past, or might be going back and forth on some contract, some document in the last couple of weeks. And with that, your mind is your best friend this year. With that unpredictable flash of insight into something that did not work before, but you now understand how to commercialize it, how to market it, how to socially improvise it, how to radically, move towards that direction. This is a bold house. This is the house where this is the house of courage. So, some of the things that we did not previously, just purely because we did not have the mindset to do it, we didn't have the courage to do it, we didn't have the right connections to do it, we didn't have the skill set to do it. Now we come up the curve and do it. So we do the things that we did not have previously, the guts in some ways to do it. Now we feel in our core that we are ready for it. And it could be in the field of communication, it could be in the field of sales, it could be conferences you're doing, it could be some sort of broadcasting, the messaging that you have, it could be a skill set, a commercial skill set that you're able to use. It could be a different, freeing, radically free ideology that you are sharing with the people in some ways, but it will involve other people. It would involve group, possibly, leveraging your immediate environment a lot. It would require you to be resourceful in some ways, using all of your immediate environment in some ways, where you're not just using your own skill set, but you're using skill set of the people around you. It could be people who are working with you, and you would be busy in actual documentation a lot. You'll find yourself having a lot of forms to fill, or a lot of communication in emails, interactions, pitches, calls, a lot. Collecting, arranging, processing, reading, writing, talking a lot. Feeding the mind. Because otherwise you'll feel a little bit like something is not right. When you're not feeding your mind, you'll feel dry in those moments. It's an excellent year to volunteer locally, join a community, neighborhood task force, or something which connects you more with your immediate environment. Taking day trips if you could, having movement, adding movement essentially to your daily routine in some ways, through either daily interactions with somebody who's locally there, or just being in social situations, being okay, taking care of some details which are part of your contracts. It will be important for you, if you're signing a contract this year, to go into the detail of it, to sort of not miss out some clauses, etc. You'll have a lot more awareness of community with this. You would want to feel part of a community in some ways. And as I said, you awaken to the opportunities in the process of that. You would explore your neighborhood in some ways, like a little adventure in some ways, exploring where you're living, or you might change where you're living because of that. You're looking for an environment that supports you, that works with you, has the same ideology and thought process. Or maybe this is like when a lot of people move to Silicon Valley because they want to think tech in some ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to be surrounded with people who talk the same language that you do, or they're able to feed your mind in some ways, with whom you can enjoy the intellectual talk. You could express, communicate with them the new, ahead of the time ideas that you have. You can investigate new things with them. You'll be very interested in writing and imagination and friendships to some extent. And this is the house, cadent house. This is the house of self development. We become more valuable when these aspects happen. As a person, through our own intrinsic skills, we sharpen them, we hone them to become more valuable. And your voice, your communication skills is a big asset to you here. Your mind, your practical, self educating, creative thinking, mentally acute mind is your biggest asset. You'll have fun exploring this. You'll have fun inventing things. You'll have fun in journaling, even. But there will be times when you'll feel overwhelmed with too much information, you'll feel overwhelmed with too many people, and you'll need to have that top of the mountain moment where you sort of need space from it all. So have that niche, a person, a goal that you can go to when it gets like that. A great time, great year to invest in learning new technologies linked to electronic communication. We all are doing that, but for you, it will somehow become essential as a part of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So, state of the art equipment, state of the art phone, state of the art, some sort of technology that you use in your business, even courses in technology, upgrading yourself in that direction. Mental health would be very important. You sort of are restructuring your mind. So there might be some courses which help you think in a different fashion, which clear out, or listening to some speakers who sort of help you shift how you sell, what your skill sets are in some ways. These are things that are lifelong for us. They will stay you and add value to you for life. Traveling, if you could. And the last couple of weeks with Mercury retrograde, you might have faced some hiccups in in your communication and your travel to some extent, because we had Mercury retrograde helps us, figure out the right way. What is the right environment we should be in? What is the right skill set? It helps us rethink our approach. It helps us rethink our approach in how our self-talk is to some extent. Transport and travel is hindered because things have to stop for a moment so we can reflect upon what has happened, and is it working for us? Is my place of living working for me? Is my mode of communication working for me? Is this phone working for me? Is this way of thinking, communicating, is this media activity serving me well? Is this commercial transaction the right for me? Is this contract a good one for me? Do I need to double check it? There'll be up and down and misunderstanding which might have happened in the last couple of weeks. And the aim was to reflect, refine, redefine, reconnect. And then now, with Mercury going direct, we move forward on this. We start launching what we want. We start launching this next 2 years of a new way of thinking and expressing ourselves, making ourselves more gainful, more useful, more inventive, in a commercial way, in a financial way. Creative thinking will also become something that you'll have to create solid boundaries around. So you can do the fun exploration, but you have to, on a productive manner, make something real out of it. It's like a writer who has a lot of ideas, but they need to set up a clock every day for a fixed time to write, and they sometimes would think, oh, this is not creative for me to fix a time. I feel like writing when I feel like writing. And when Saturn is here, Saturn says, no, you got to put a time, because you got to finish a book this year. You got to fix the time because you got to make that pitch in that time. You got to fix the time because you got to create this much commercial value out of your business venture at this time. You got to fix a timeline when this thing needs to yield value for you. So you'll not just look at the 30,000 feet. You're going to look at not just from a high value, you look at the practical and the real and the implementation and the objective. And in this period, it's not about losing creativity, it's about directing it to a form in some ways. And the creative information then becomes more commercial. The networking then becomes more productive. Neighborhood, community, and the people in your surroundings, they help you in your self-understanding if you create the right boundaries from them in some ways. If you create the right mental boundaries as well from everything that is being thrown at you, at your mind, we are able to learn how to assimilate value out of everything that is being thrown at us. This is also the house of siblings, so if there are any old sibling issues, they might come for resolution. Communication becomes more quality, not quantity, more quality. We learn to focus, to concentrate, new strategy of learning, thinking, selling, discipline to write and sell. Not, it sort of, it sort of makes your mastermind where when you talk to people, you sort of become a store of knowledge that they're looking for. You would make yourself, you sort of filter out a lot of things that are not valuable in some ways. And all of this is happening when Saturn is making a square with Uranus. And Uranus, the planet of shift and change and freedom, is sitting in your house of work, in a house of projects. So when that happens, we want to do something different. We want to not do the traditional job. We don't want to be in the 9 to 5, or even if we are in the 9 to 5, the projects, the kind of work we want to be involved in needs to be very, very forward looking. We want liberation when it comes to our work. And Uranus entered here in 2018. You might have already experienced a lot of volatility in your day-to-day routines, in your work. It essentially makes us vibrate at a different frequency. So everything that doesn't match that frequency sort of falls away, because we don't want things to be boring anymore, if I may say, in our work. It's a very unconventional approach to work. And it doesn't happen to everybody. Uranus is a very slow moving planet. It comes in a specific area of our life once in 84 years. So most people around you may not have experienced that. There are pretty much maybe 3 signs in the world who would have ever experienced that in our lifetime. So all of us don't experience that in our lifetime, but you do. When that happens, we have to find a new model of working. It's almost like when Uranus is here, it's almost like there's a job which hasn't been invented that you want to do. And 2021 is such a year when a lot of careers, a lot of jobs, a lot of projects will come into being, which never existed before. Because of all this Aquarius energy this year, we're going to do something out of the box. And this gives you an opportunity to think of doing something completely out of the box. It is almost like you're recreating who you are as a career, as a project, as a person who works. In your day-to-day routine, you're redefining your life in some ways on a day-to-day basis. Because the mundane routines, maybe they don't interest you anymore. You'll be creating, sometimes if we don't create innovation in our day-to-day life or interesting things to do on a day-to-day life, our own psyche sort of creates upheavals to get out of it. This is like a person who goes to job and knows that this is not part of their destiny, but they still go it. And we, in some ways, not knowing why, start acting completely out of our normal behavior over there, just so we can get out of that job. Because intellectually, we are telling ourselves we got to do this because we need the money. But psychologically, we know that this is not part of our destiny anymore. So you are psychologically affected with Uranus being here. Uranus is a very distant planet. It acts more on our psyche instead of physically outplaying. What it does is that it changes our psyche, and then the external environment, we change unconsciously as a result of that. So it has in some ways changed your mindset about what you want to do on a day-to-day basis. At the same time, it adds some brilliance to our work. Pop up ideas about new kind of project, unconventional approach to projects. You add some very different element that did not exist before to work. There's lively exchange of ideas. There's no bound here. New technology, new subjects, alternative medicines, diets, exercises, looking at markets and stock market in a very unique fashion. And this is also the house of health. So even on a health basis, you think of it in a completely different fashion. The healing methods that you want to use or the medicine the way you want to use is very different. It could be alternative medicine, it could be energy methods and other methods. So when Uranus is here, we tend to change jobs. We tend to change our profession. Keeping a routine becomes tough and hard to focus. So when these two planets are coming together, Saturn is restructuring our mind. Uranus is asking her to change the kind of projects that we are in it. The most obvious inhibition or the most obvious roadblock that comes is skill set. There's a steep learning curve, completely different skill set, and you have to completely take a different direction. Shift your complete approach to the commercial ideas at work. And this is something you learn to do over this year. Saturn and Uranus are going to make this square 3 times. First time is in February, second is in June, last is in December. The first time we seed something, so in February we are seeding something. In June we are going to modify that. In December we are going to give the final birth to it. So this whole year you'll be forced to harness this inner tension that you are feeling in a productive fashion into a passion, into a purpose that permits you to participate in a larger expression in some ways. So you'll take all this dissonance that you're feeling and you'll direct it towards something of a communication, a commercial idea, a complete change of skill set, a completely different way of talking. This is your left brain expanding completely. You sort of feel like a person who wants to know everything about everything. You'll be in the pursuit of information of practical use. Just, as I said, don't get lost over details. It becomes like an overthinking thing sometimes. And at the same time, you are trying to take care of your health. So it can sometimes conflict too much thinking, too much of this focus on a new direction that you're trying to do. It can interfere with your health. So you got to balance that out. And this square will help you create this balance during the course of this year. Through some friction, there'll be a lighter conflict of sorts. Old mindset, old thought process, even negative thinking coming in the way of doing something new at job. Old mindset, old thinking, negative thinking, which needs restructuring, needs filtering, or your immediate neighbor, or the way your travel is, the way current situation is in travel, and somehow inhibiting your ability to do something new at your job. So creating techniques around it. You will find the ways around it. Squares are aspects that make us create something where nothing existed, because it hurts so much to not do it. It just feels like I cannot exist in the current circumstances without breaking out of it. So through friction, it creates this dissonance, tremendous tension that has to explode into something different. You sort of feel much more compelled than ever before to do that, because your house of day-to-day routine has Taurus in it, which is a stable sign. You normally would not want to do this disruptive thing. But right now it becomes so, it like pretty much hurts in the brain if you don't do it, because it's so ripe to be delivered. The idea is so ripe to be delivered, or this change in direction is so ripe to be delivered in some ways. It becomes painfully obvious that it has to be done. And then you acquire the skill set for it, you get the mentors for it, you get the right surroundings for it, you get the right communication skills and devices for it, you work on restructuring your mind, and you let it flow in the direction where you know your mind is taking you. You know you know this because the nervousness settles down when you do it, the restlessness settles down when you do it, the health feels better when you do it. That would be, in my view, especially like if you have allergies of some sort, because the mind body connection becomes very strong when these aspects happen. So our body reacts very immediately to our psychology during this time. So that's what I have for you, Sagittarius, for 2021. Good luck for all that's coming your way. This is a very, very positive year with Jupiter, your ruler, in your house of mind. We got to use it to deliver something very, very unique and different to the world this year. And I'm sure you're going to be able to do that with everything that you're made of. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video now.